Archive reference, Greyfall Files 002. The following case was first documented during the spring of 1912. It began with a photograph. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about it. A woman seated in a wooden chair, hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed upon the camera. The image appeared completely ordinary, the sort of portrait that could be found in countless Victorian homes across Greyfall. For several weeks, nobody paid attention to it. Then someone noticed the date written on the reverse side. The photograph had been taken on April 17th, 1912. The woman in the image had died on April 14th, 3 days earlier. At first, investigators suspected a simple mistake. Perhaps the date had been recorded incorrectly. Perhaps the photograph had been developed later than expected. Perhaps someone had confused two different women. One by one, those explanations were eliminated. The death certificate was authentic. The funeral records matched. Church documents confirmed the burial. Even the cemetery register contained Eleanor Finch's signature entered by the undertaker himself. Every official document agreed. Eleanor Finch was dead. Yet there she was, staring directly into the camera, as if nothing had happened, as if she had never left Greyfall at all. Years later, when archivists re-examined the original photograph, they noticed something even stranger. Something investigators had initially overlooked. A dark shape standing behind Eleanor's chair, almost invisible, watching from the shadows. And according to the first report, that figure was not present when the photograph was taken. In 1912, Greyfall remained much as it had always been. The fog still arrived before sunrise, the church bells still echoed through empty streets, and people still lowered their voices whenever certain subjects were mentioned, particularly after dark. The woman in the photograph was named Eleanor Finch, 29 years old, a schoolteacher, respected by colleagues, loved by her students, known throughout Greyfall as someone who rarely attracted attention. Her life appeared ordinary in every measurable way, which made the circumstances surrounding her death deeply unusual. According to official records, Eleanor died alone inside her home on April 14th. The attending physician reported no signs of violence, no evidence of poisoning, no indication of illness severe enough to explain her sudden death. The case was closed within 48 hours. Most people accepted the explanation. A few did not. Several neighbors later gave statements that were never included in the official report. Each described hearing Eleanor speaking late at night during the week before her death. Not reading aloud, not praying, conversing, pausing as though listening to responses, then continuing. One witness claimed she heard Eleanor repeatedly ask the same question. "Who are you?" Another reported hearing laughter. Not Eleanor's laughter. Someone else's. When investigators questioned the neighbors again months later, every one of them denied ever making those statements. The photograph was taken by Arthur Bell, Greyfall's only professional photographer. Arthur was not known for superstition, nor was he known for exaggeration. He approached photography the way a scientist approached evidence. Everything was documented: appointments, weather conditions, camera settings, exposure times. Nothing was left to memory, which is why investigators took his testimony seriously. Arthur stated that Eleanor entered his studio shortly before noon on April 17th, alone. He remembered greeting her, remembered helping her remove her coat, remembered positioning the chair beneath the studio window. According to Arthur, the session lasted approximately 15 minutes. 3 photographs were taken. Nothing appeared unusual at the time. Years later, however, Arthur would describe details he initially dismissed. He claimed Eleanor barely blinked during the session. She rarely moved, and she seemed distracted by something standing behind him. Several times her eyes drifted toward an empty corner of the room, as though someone were watching. Arthur repeatedly turned to look. Each time he found nothing there. After the final photograph was taken, Eleanor stood, thanked him politely, and left. Arthur never saw her again. At least, not in person. The mystery deepened later that evening. Arthur developed the glass negatives inside his darkroom, following the same process he had used hundreds of times before. At first, everything appeared normal. The exposure was clean, the lighting was correct, the portrait itself was excellent. Then he noticed something standing behind Eleanor's chair, a faint shape, barely visible, easy to miss. Arthur assumed it was a flaw in the plate, a chemical stain, a reflection, perhaps dust trapped during development. Such imperfections were common. Then he examined the second negative. The shape remained, identical, same position, same height, same posture. A coincidence suddenly became less convincing. Arthur proceeded to the third plate. The figure appeared again, unchanged, watching from the shadows. He enlarged the image repeatedly. Each enlargement revealed slightly more detail. A tall silhouette, long arms, an unnaturally narrow frame. The face remained impossible to identify. Yet Arthur became certain of one thing. Whatever appeared in the photograph had not been standing inside the studio, because he had been alone with Eleanor. Of that fact, he never expressed even the slightest doubt, and for the first time in his career, Arthur Bell locked his studio door before going home. Arthur spent the following days searching for an explanation. At first, he consulted other photographers. None could explain the anomaly. Several suggested defects in the glass. Others blamed contamination during development. One expert proposed that a previous image had somehow remained imprinted upon the plate. Arthur tested every theory. None survived examination. The figure appeared only behind Eleanor. Never before, never after. The mystery might have ended there. Then an elderly resident named Walter Crane visited the studio. Walter stared at the photograph for several minutes without speaking. When Arthur finally asked if he recognized the figure, the old man nodded, slowly, reluctantly. Walter claimed he had seen drawings resembling the silhouette many years earlier. Not photographs, drawings, hidden inside journals and personal diaries belonging to deceased residents of Greyfall. Most dated back decades, some much further. According to Walter, the figure always appeared near people who died unexpectedly. The statement was impossible to verify. When Arthur asked to see the journals, Walter admitted something unsettling. They had disappeared, every single one, and he could not remember when. Only that one day they had been there, and the next day, they were gone. Determined to understand what he had captured on film, Arthur Bell visited Greyfall Cemetery. The funeral had taken place only 3 days before the portrait session. Rain had fallen heavily during the night. The ground remained soft. The grave appeared undisturbed. Fresh flowers rested upon the soil. Fresh footprints from mourners surrounded the area. Everything seemed normal. Until Arthur noticed a second trail. At first he assumed it belonged to the groundskeeper. Then he looked closer. The footprints were different. There was only one set, and they did not lead toward the grave. They began there. Arthur followed them through the mud. One step, then another, then another. The impressions moved away from Eleanor's burial site and disappeared into a bank of fog near the cemetery wall. No return trail existed. No second set of prints existed. Nothing suggested where the person had gone. The groundskeeper later confirmed Arthur's observation. He also admitted something he had never reported. On the morning after Eleanor's burial, he found the cemetery gate standing open. The lock remained intact. No signs of forced entry. No explanation. He closed the gate and told nobody. Years later, he would claim that was the decision he regretted most. Arthur's search eventually brought him to the Greyfall Archives, a place most residents never entered. Rows of forgotten records stretched into darkness, dust-covered shelves, parish registers, police reports, personal journals donated by families long since gone. For several days, Arthur found nothing. Then he discovered a journal belonging to Father Nathaniel Brooks, a parish priest who had served Greyfall in 1843. The journal contained dozens of routine entries, baptisms, funerals, weather observations. Then the tone changed. Several pages described a series of unexplained deaths. Each victim had reportedly claimed to see a figure standing nearby during the days preceding their death. Most dismissed the reports as hallucinations. Father Brooks did not. Tucked between 2 pages, Arthur found a sketch. Crude, faded, yet unmistakable. A woman seated in a chair, and behind her, the same silhouette visible in Eleanor's photograph. Beneath the drawing appeared a single handwritten sentence. They appear shortly before the forgotten return. No further explanation followed. Arthur searched the journal from beginning to end. The phrase never appeared again, nor did any reference to what exactly was returning. The discovery should have ended Arthur's investigation. Instead, it consumed him. He returned to his studio, examined old negatives, reviewed years of photographs. Portrait after portrait passed beneath his magnifying glass. Nothing. Then he found another image, a photograph taken 6 years earlier. A young boy standing alone outside Greyfall Station. The image appeared ordinary, until Arthur examined the reflection in a nearby window. There it was, the same figure, standing behind the child, watching. The silhouette was smaller in this photograph, more distant, yet unmistakable. Arthur continued searching. A third image surfaced, then a fourth, then a fifth. Different years, different people, different locations. The figure remained unchanged. It never approached, never interacted, never moved closer. It simply watched, and every person appearing in those photographs shared something in common. Each would later die unexpectedly, or disappear without explanation. Arthur stopped sleeping soon afterward. According to friends, he became convinced the figure knew he was searching for it. 3 weeks later, Arthur Bell disappeared. His studio was found locked from the inside. The camera remained mounted upon its tripod. The darkroom remained active. Chemical trays still contained partially developed photographs. A lantern continued burning on his desk, as though he had stepped away only moments earlier. Police searched the building thoroughly. No signs of struggle, no signs of forced entry, no evidence Arthur had left voluntarily. Then investigators discovered his notebook. The final pages contained frantic observations, dates, names, photograph references, repeated sketches of the same shadow figure. The final entry filled only a single line. "They know I can see them." Nothing followed. No farewell, no explanation, no signature. Arthur Bell was never found, and despite extensive searches, no trace of him has ever been recovered. Officially, the case of Eleanor Finch was never solved. Officially, the disappearance of Arthur Bell remains unrelated. Officially, the shadow figure does not exist. The Greyfall Archives tell a different story. Over the next 72 years, the same silhouette would appear in 6 additional photographs. Different cameras, different photographers, different decades. Always standing in the background, always watching, never identified. A confidential archive report compiled in 1984 revealed something investigators never released publicly. Every photographer who successfully captured the figure eventually disappeared. Not immediately, not in the same way, but every one of them vanished, without exception. The report concluded with a recommendation. The recommendation remains active today. Any future appearance of the figure should not be photographed. No explanation accompanied the order. Only a final handwritten note added later by an unknown archivist. A note consisting of 7 words. "The photograph is not what it sees." And according to Greyfall records, nobody has ever discovered what that sentence means. This file is closed. The mystery is not. Somewhere in Greyfall, another record is waiting to be found. I am Knox, and Greyfall remembers.
The next story is already waiting. Subscribe to enter the archive.